Hi, welcome to another exciting episode of the Andre The Beast Crayton Show with my beautiful co-host. Look, she's smiling. The one. She's back by popular demand. New shoes, new look. Look, she's like, new toenails. I mean, we're doing it all today.
Hi, Andre.
Welcome back, Yolanda M. Smith, the Branthopist.
Thank you, darling. It's a pleasure to be here. Definitely. Pleasure to be here.
I love the brand colors, man.
Yes. We got to represent the brand. My brand is Still in Gold. And if I find outfits and clothes to match, I do buy it.
Yeah.
My nails always are on brand. So it's Still in Gold. And then I do a touch of orange. Because you got to give it a pop, a splash or something.
Okay, before we get into the guests, let's continue this ensemble, this beautiful ensemble of gold, and you're starting to look like King Midas, man, with all this gold. Explain the color combinations and why you picked that to be part of your brand, because they're beautiful colors.
Well, colors have meaning. Colors have meaning, and so what I was really drawn by was blue and green initially. So the blue and green. And if you
green means intelligent, right?
Well, it can be. It also means money. It also can be a source of nature, of grounding, that sort of thing. Mm-hmm. Blue really is around education. If academic institutions use a lot of blue gold, right? Blue, that navy. But it can mean that. It also trust. Trust is an important word. So me being I feel like an educator, one who empowers, right? And then wanting to inspire people to live their best life. And part of that is to be able to achieve the freedom, have money. But then the gold brings in a little bit of element of royalty and luxury. You know what I mean?
Okay.
The luxury. And so I'd like to think
have any of that.
You do have it. It's just within you.
Okay, great.
Because if you think about your logo, it carries all those colors.
Well, thank you.
So you're a combination of them all, darling. So that's what that's about. But so I tell the people, when you brand yourself, when you think about the things that you do and what you want your brand identity to look like, your colors do matter because they have meaning.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
I'm glad we're on the same page.
Yes.
Great minds think alike.
Yes.
Today, another exciting show, another exciting guest.
Always.
The thing that I like about the show is that the guests that we have on have such great stories that everybody can relate to in one sense or the other. Mm-hmm. Today is no exception to the rule. Imagine living life in reverse for a moment. What does that mean? What does that consist of? And more importantly, why live your life in reverse? What's the meaning? What's the purpose?
Maybe you got to back that thing up. I don't know.
Yeah. Today on the show, we have a beautiful young lady whose story will explain that concept. Why live life in reverse? And does living life in reverse, does that mean that now we can move forward?
You have to just find out.
Introduce our guest, baby.
Yes. So coming to the stage is no other than Miss Brenda Finnell. We are excited to have you. Welcome.
Hey, thank you so much, Andre and Yolanda. Thank you for this opportunity. I really appreciate it.
Yes, just to be able to have you here. And obviously we had a little bit of pre-discussion, and I think your story is going to be absolutely amazing because at the end of the day, this show is predicated on the beast mindset, right? How to overcome any challenges that you may face, because we're always going to have them. The reality is, as I tell Andre all the time, people are either going through something, coming out of something, or getting ready to go into something.
Say that one more time.
I said people are either going through something, coming out of something, or getting ready to go into something.
Amen.
That's just the cycle of life, right? So if you don't mind, before we get into the questioning, would you tell the viewers a little bit about yourself and a little bit about your story so that you can set the table, if you will, for the conversation this afternoon?
For sure. Again, my name is Brenda Finnell. When I wrote my book, I authored it under BB Finnell because it was like a rebirth to utilize my nickname instead of my government name. And so I wrote the story. I started actually writing the story about 14 years ago. I suffer with dyslexia and ADD. So writing this book, I was like, what in the world? However, I noticed that I wasn't the only person living my life in reverse as it relates to childhood sexual trauma. I was at the nail shop one day, and this white female and I was just talking. And you know how some people talk to their bartender, some people talk to their barber. Well, I just happened to talk to my nail tech. And she and I just started sharing stories, and we found out that we had this common story about childhood sexual trauma that went untreated. And here, as an adult, we were talking about how we believe living our life in reverse like that has impacted each of us. She had been married twice. She was divorced. She struggled with drugs and alcohol. I didn't struggle with those things, but I struggled with shopping addiction, where I continued to shop and try to figure out why is it important for me to have these things. And it wasn't until she and I started sharing stories that I realized that my sexual trauma was connected to my story, and her story was connected to the things that was happening in her life. So this one particular day, after she finished my nail, she's like, girl, we have so much that you need to write a book. So that day I went home and I started just putting things down. And the first thing I wrote was because it's how I felt. Had been living my life in reverse, meaning that I was so stuck in that moment of what happened to me. It was difficult for me to enjoy life, to love my family, to love my children, to tap into my spirituality. And I'm a licensed clinical social worker. And so I provide this therapeutic services to veterans and other people all the time. And I just wasn't giving the same self-care to myself. So this book is more about self-care. It is fiction. My life has influenced what I've written, but it is a book of fiction. And and I'm hoping that I can touch at least one person in some meaningful way.
Wow.
May I? First of all, thank you for coming on the show and getting ready to share such a beautiful story. I'm going to start out with this question, and it may go deep, and I think it needs to go deep in order for people to really resonate with what you went through and the longevity that you held on to it for so long. What was it like growing up? First of all, where are you from, and what was it like growing up for you in your childhood?
Okay, I was raised in Washington, D.C. With a single mother of 3, and I have 2 brothers, and I'm the only girl. And my mother was gone a lot. She worked a lot, and of course, I'm the youngest child, so I was left home along with my brothers quite often. I had one brother who suffered with drug addiction, and he happened to fall asleep one night, and his friend came in and sexually assaulted me. So that's when the history of my sexual assault started. But if I'm honest, if I look back on it, there were other moments where family members touched me inappropriately, and I wasn't able to process that. So I think to deal with it, I just kind of suppressed it, and I, tried to live my life as best as I could. But then I married this amazing man 37 years ago. And early on in our marriage, I used to fight in my sleep all the time. And it wasn't until I started to get therapeutic services that I realized that the fighting had to do with something that happened to me 13 years, when I was 13. So when you are abused, whether it be sexually, physically, emotionally, psychologically, those things can stay with you if you do not get help. And I just happened to grow up in a family and a culture that didn't believe in getting help. It's like, go to church, pray about it. What happens in this house stays in this house. So if you're going to talk about it, you better talk about it to a minister or someone who's not going to share your story. And so for me, I never got treatment until I was an adult. And just not me, but I'm finding that since I've written this book, a lot of people that I'm connected to have never received therapy until they were older, a lot older.
You mentioned 13 years old. It started when you was 13 years old? It started in the household was it multiple people outside of the perpetrator who was a friend in the house? Like, how long did this take place, and how long did it
I
take
understand
place?
what you,
Yeah.
right. So the actual sexual assault happened when I was 13, but prior to that, it was other situations where I had family members touching me. I think the earliest that I can remember is I was about around 8 or 9 years old, where relatives, cousins, whomever was touching me inappropriately, and I suffered in silence because my mom struggled to maintain employment and housing, so we were a transitional family when we moved around. And so, in order to not be homeless, my mother would put us in unsafe. I don't think she did it on purpose, but she would put us in unsafe situations, myself including my brothers, where we were just sexually abused. And then when we told her about it, she didn't believe it. She didn't believe us. And so that's another layer of the trauma that I had to deal with. That my mom didn't keep me safe. She didn't believe me. She didn't keep me safe. And this stuff did not happen to me once. It happened to me several times, and it happened to my brother, my youngest brother, who's older than me.
Where was your father?
Then you I wish you could tell me that. No,
What you say?
we
Ask me
happened.
something easy, okay?
Like,
Yeah.
oh, so
Yeah,
let me
my
redo it.
mother was a single mom. She was a
Single
single
mom.
mom.
Yeah.
So your father was not in the picture anywhere you knew of him or nothing. So who did a male role model
I
even
knew
step
of
in?
him, but I didn't know him, if that makes sense. I
Okay.
knew who my father was, but my mom left him when I was like 9 months old. And so she didn't have the resources, the education. She just didn't have what she needed to provide a healthy, safe environment for my brothers and I. And so we went from home to home until I think we got stable around when I was about 9 years old.
Was there ever a male in the house that
She
you
had a few
consider
boyfriends.
stepfather? Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
she had a few boyfriends, but no, not consistently. No,
Did anything inappropriate happen with the so-called boyfriends because
no,
you've been
never.
victimized? So that was never, was that ever concern of you, knowing that she's bringing the man in, knowing the fact that you've been violated? I mean,
Hmm.
your trust can't be strong as it relates to males at this point.
For sure. But by that time, when she brought this one particular male in, my brother was 6'4", 265 pounds, and he was very protective of me. So no, at that point, I wasn't worried too much.
Mm-hmm. That's
Not with the men, not with the men. It just happens that my brother, the night that I was assaulted when I was 13, he wasn't home. My brother, who normally protects me, he wasn't home. And so this person comes in, my other brother's friend comes into the house. I'm asleep. He comes into the house. And when you read the book opens up like that. So that part of the story is true. Of course, the names have been changed. But
Mhm.
yes, I was asleep. My perpetrator came into my bedroom and he sexually assaulted me.
God bless you. And
Yes.
and holding on to it though, I think this is where maybe we can really, really help people. Knowing what you know today,
Mm-hmm.
what would you tell your younger self?
Oh, wow. One of the things, I have a quote that I always use. Uh, it's in my book, and it talks about uh, I should have told someone, and then I always say I should have felt safe to be able to tell someone because again, my mother's. You have to, if you put this in cultural, uh, the era in which this happened to me in the 70s. You remember when you were on food stamps and welfare and receiving public assistance, the social workers were always in your house. And from a cultural perspective, Black culture anyway, you have been taught, don't tell those people what happens
Don't
in
say
this
nothing to
happens in
them.
this.
When they come, you sit down and be quiet. Mhm.
Correct. You're to be seen and not heard. And so I grew up being seen but not heard. And so I took that
Gotcha.
same persona into my adult life. I was seen but not heard. With my husband, I was seen but not heard. And so I think about all the relationships, even with my children, I'm seen and not heard. So I've never, for a long time, I never felt respected by people who I loved, and I felt was there to support me. And the reason being is because I was taught to be seen.
And so would you just not speak up for yourself? But I'm assuming you would speak up on behalf of your children.
I was just getting ready to ask that
Oh,
same
yes.
question.
Yes. I did not speak up for I don't know if you ever heard of the term called learned helplessness. My mother was an authoritarian, so you didn't get to speak. You know, you're a child, stay in a child's place,
Mm-hmm.
right? I don't know if you've ever heard that term. And so for me, it was like, I just didn't want the wrath of, from anyone. I wanted everyone to accept me and like me. And if it meant that they had to sexually assault me, then okay, I just don't want anyone to be mad at me or to be upset with me. But then I had my own children and I became a mama bear and wouldn't let I have two daughters and a son, and I would never let them go visit people overnight. They could
Right.
go spend the day. But as far as coming and spending the night, no, I wasn't. No,
I mean,
just couldn't do it. I was very protective.
and so what impact did this have then on your professional life?
Oh, wow. So, again, I'm a licensed clinical social worker. And I started working in a school, Indianapolis Public Schools. When I met my husband 37 years ago in DC, we moved from DC to Indianapolis. And
You know
throughout
that's
my
where we
life,
are, right?
Indianapolis?
Yes.
Oh, okay. I don't know. I thought you guys were in Carmel.
Well, we're no, we're up in
We're
the
north, so we're at the Keystone Crossing, which is
Gotcha.
Carmel. I'm in Carmel. Yeah, yeah.
Okay. All right. All right. So yeah, I moved here in the late 80s with my husband, and we had these beautiful. Oh, I had a child prior to my husband. I forgot to tell you that. Yes, I had a child. So imagine me meeting my husband. My daughter is 4 years old, and I am so protective of her. I wouldn't leave her alone with him. Uh, and then those moments when, like, if I got off of work and he happened to pick her up, I'm like, is everything okay? Did anything happen to you? Did he touch you? You know, it's just,
and
the lack of trust,
yeah.
yes, that I had. And it really got on my daughter's nerves. She's like, no, mom, no, mom, no, mom. I'm like, because I wish my mom had asked me those questions. Brenda, do you feel safe? Has anyone touched you? And not only I wish I had that relationship for me to be able to ask, but trust that she would do something about it if I did tell her. So there
Hold
was
on
a
a minute.
lack of truth.
Hold on a
Go
minute.
ahead.
Let's go back a minute.
Okay.
You mentioned the mama bear scenario.
Right.
You go into a relationship with your new
Mm-hmm.
husband. Two-part question.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Did you share with your new
Say
husband?
the same thing.
Yeah. Great minds think alike.
Did he know?
Yeah. Does he know
Okay.
what you
Okay.
went through? And more importantly, because your daughter's saying, yeah, mom, she's getting tired of the scenario. Yeah, mom. Did you share with your daughter what you went through?
No, because she was 4 or 5 years old at the time. But as she aged, I shared my story with all my children.
What
The
age did
second
you
part,
share it with? Because that's important for people to know, because a child should stay in a child's place. And then the ideal of being able to process what's going on
mhm.
also plays a key role. So about what age was it that you start telling your children this as well?
My oldest daughter, I think she must have been about 7 or 8 because it's at that time when she wants to spend the night with,
Mhm.
her peers. And she's trying to figure out why I won't let her stay. And if I'm honest, I didn't tell my husband until one particular night when he came in early on in our marriage. He came in to kiss me, and when he woke me up, I was just fighting for dear life. I remember fighting him, and he's trying to figure out what's going on. And so that night, I told him, and I think wasn't even our first year married.
How did he take what you said? Because that's a lot to try to process in
Yes,
any relationship.
for sure. He was absolutely God sent. Uh, just very passionate, kept apologizing that he was sorry that happened to me. And then he started to experience his own traumatic issues related to my story, because now, should I kiss her? Should I not kiss her?
I was
When
just
she
getting ready to
sees,
ask that. Like, how does that change the relationship and the intimacy part? Because now you deep down, you have triggers that haven't been addressed through therapy at this point, correct?
correct. Correct. And so he has to change his whole behavior, his whole approach. He can't wake me up in the middle. Intimacy sometimes happen in the middle of the night. But I have to be conscious that that's going to happen because if he would come up to me and wake me up and startle me, then I would fight. And then he would feel bad. And, how do you go from waking up fighting and then now my spouse or he's expecting me to be intimate? So again, it was a struggle, and it was a struggle for a long time. And remember, I didn't get help. So now here it is. We have this issue that's developing, that's festering in our marriage, and I'm refusing to get help because why would I get help? Black folks don't get help. Black folks go to the altar, pray, and keep it moving.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's what my story was. And so it wasn't until I met my nail tech and she started to talk about her history and that she went to get help. I said, "You went to get help? You went to therapy?" I mean, I said it as if it was a bad word. That's how bad it was because I was in denial that I
Being
needed
a social worker and knowing the value of therapy.
I wasn't a social worker at the time. I was going to school to be a social worker.
Okay.
Yeah. And so it wasn't until I met her, she shared her story about therapy. And then when I meet her, I'm in undergrad. It wasn't until I got to my master's that I started to realize, wow, I learned about learned helplessness. I learned about my mother being authoritarian. I learned how those things impacted me. I learned about ADHD. I learned about dyslexia. I learned about post-traumatic stress. And then I realized that I suffered with something called complicated post-traumatic stress because after a certain period of time, I mean, this happened when I was 13, and here I'm in my 40s just realizing that I need help. Mm-hmm. So it has been a long battle for me to get there. Thank God that I had a husband that was supportive, and I had this amazing friend that kind of normalized how I was feeling. And it wasn't until I felt safe. When you're telling something is this painful, the first thing oftentimes people, only speaking for myself though, I needed to feel safe before I could. If I didn't trust my own mom with this, why would I trust anyone else? If that makes sense. Mm-hmm. And so for me, I had to feel safe. And at some point, I don't think it was a conscious decision like I feel safe. I just felt safe, if that makes sense.
So this is interesting because I just kind of think about me growing up and I didn't have those issues, but I had a very protective brother. Mm-hmm. And so did you tell because if I had told my brother, he might still be in the penitentiary right now because he would have killed him.
Yeah.
I mean, so did you share that with your brother or you did not?
Actually, my brother came home. Again, he wasn't home that night when it happened.
The other one was passed out, right?
The other one's passed out, drunk and high, yes. And so the next day, and a part of this is that my mother wasn't even in town. And so when my brother, who's protective of me, came home the next day, I told him, we called my mother, and she did not believe me.
Oh.
Let me.
And then the brother just kind of dropped it?
No, he did not drop it. He was after the person who did it, but he couldn't find the person. Gotcha. And then my brother, who was on drugs, the next day they both went out looking for him and they couldn't find him.
Gotcha.
And thank God, because they would have ended up in the penitentiary.
Exactly. Yeah.
Let's go forward a little bit here.
Okay.
2-part question.
Okay.
What's up with the 2-part?
I don't know. It just sounds good.
2-part question.
Because my mind is like really.
We got 5 parts.
My mind always travels ahead, like the speed of sound. Yeah. I'm always like, boom, I'm out there, like really engaging in the story. So let me go here with this 2 parts.
Okay.
I wasn't 3, but 2.
Okay.
How bad did your relationship get? Because this is what I tell people when it comes to therapy. If you don't know how to deal with a person's trauma, it becomes difficult. Now you have to shift your way of thinking. He loves you, the whole 9 yards, but this is becoming a problem. How long?
Or is it?
How long? Well, it did because she went and got help. So how long did that take? And was the marriage on shaky ground now? Because you're not admitting to go get treatment. He doesn't know how to really deal with it, but you guys are dealing because you love each other. But there's a breaking point of the code of silence now being unleashed upon him, but he still has no way of dealing with it, and you don't know how to deal with it. So was the marriage getting ready to almost dissipate before you decided, before the opportunity came for you to go get help?
Great question. Actually, no, our marriage was never in jeopardy. I am 3 kids into it now. We've been married about 10 years, and he is a police
Congratulations.
officer. Thank you. He's a police officer.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's been 37 years now, but I'm talking this has happened when we were like in the 10th.
Amazing.
He's a police officer working homicide, and he's never home. So I think it saved our marriage because he's working some late shift, so I don't have to worry about waking up fighting. So in my head, oh my God, I don't have to deal with this because he's not home, he's not waking me up, I don't have to fight. I don't have to worry about pretending to be wanting to be intimate with my spouse when he just woke me out of a night terror, And so that wasn't an issue because he was not there. He was working all the time. However, when he was home and now I have migraines and now I have insomnia, I'm irritable and I have 3 kids I'm trying to take up. So what am I doing? I'm whining and complaining all the time, right? He doesn't have the patience to deal with that. It's like either you're going to go get help or you're not. You need to figure this out because I have to work. Because now at this point, I am basically a single mom because he's working all the time. And so from his perspective, either you're going to go get help or not. But I will say, to my knowledge, I don't think our marriage was ever in jeopardy. He just wanted me to go get help because he recognized that I needed help before I did. Because remember, I'm in denial.
Right.
Denial is protecting me from having to deal with all this.
Yes.
No, that happened to me a long time ago. I got to get over it and move on. I was saying the words, but I wasn't living the words. I was stuck in that moment of when I was 13 and that person came into my bedroom and they raped me.
Yes.
Can I do one more, please?
I thought you did a question.
She just answered the 2 parts.
He has 2 more parts.
Listen, didn't he say let you run this interview? I ain't said 2 good words.
So that's
to me not being here. That's all.
Let's talk about the reverse part. So now I'm listening to your story. So I'm putting myself in your shoes because that's what you have to do. So from a compassion standpoint, I would think outside of confining in your family, in your husband, I would think the most difficult part of this journey is now you have to go to therapy and feel comfortable being totally transparent in this part. But this is where I'm going with this. Okay. So people can understand. Therapy is almost like a you shopping for the different outfits. You got to find the right one.
Yeah. Because they are not all made.
Many times did you wind up having to go to different therapists, and what was that journey like for you? And how did you wind up finding comfortability in the right one, and why?
Okay. So
a lot, girl. I know.
When I went to therapy, my first time going to therapy, I didn't go to therapy for what happened to me, my PTSD. I went to therapy because I was struggling at work. So it's like EAP. And I was trying to figure out, it's like, I do what they tell me to do, and I don't understand what the problem is. Again, I was dealing with something called learned helplessness. If you tell me what to do, I will do it. But I never took the initiative. And so I kept getting this feedback that you lack initiative. And I'm like, what? But if they tell me to do something, I do it. So that was my first time. So EAP, no, I didn't talk about that. it wasn't until I hope I get through this story without crying. My daughter is 12 years old. My oldest daughter is 12 years old now, and I am a mama bear smothering her. So she decides that she wants to go live with her father in Washington, D.C. It just broke my heart, right? It's like, oh my God, why is she leaving me? I'm protecting her. She's safe. No one's touching her. I'm projecting my life onto her. My life, my life was not her life because she didn't experience what I had experienced, and it was driving her nuts. So at 12, she decided that she wanted to go live with her natural father. So it was in that moment where I was probably my second most painful thing in my life to actually have happened to me. And it was in that moment when I went and the therapist asked me why I wouldn't allow her to do these things. And it was the first time that I had shared with someone outside my family about the sexual trauma. And that was like the opening for my beginning to live my life forward just a little bit. I was just giving her enough to understand why I was, why I was so overprotective of her. And so I went with her for a little while, but then I thought, you know what, I want to find a therapist that looks like me. Not that it was anything wrong with this therapist. That therapist was more with family and spousal. I needed someone who could help me deal with my sexual trauma. And so I
And kind
found
of understand that cultural thing too, because we did have certain mindsets about what therapy was, what was it, what went unspoken. Everybody had that one uncle. Everybody, I mean, these were things that were
yes,
real to us that another culture would not even understand. They'd be looking at you like, huh, what do you mean? Tell me more.
sure,
You know what I mean?
for
Yeah.
sure.
Yeah. So you're
And
right.
so we lived under this mentality of what happens in this house stays in this house.
Mhm.
And so if I'm working under that premise, then why would I think it's okay to talk to anyone? However, now I'm married. I have my own children. I want them to have healthy esteems. I want them to feel safe. But I was so far right. It took me a long time to recognize, Brenda, their story is not your story. You have a two-parent home. Your husband's a police officer. You protect them. You have more resources. You are here with them. It is okay to allow them to do A, B, and C. But if you talk to any one of them, they will say, oh my God, she smothered us. And I always go, I'd rather smother them to be sexually assaulted. That was my way of thinking. However, for them,
Yeah.
I was creating anxiety in them, because they were feeling overwhelmed because now they have trust issues. My mother went through this. So I started to project my feelings onto them. And so I had to kind of figure out some balance in that. But by this time, my daughter, she's already living in DC with her husband. Now, too, and I don't want to lose them. And so now I'm trying to just navigate this. And it was in that moment when my oldest daughter left that I realized that I needed help. I just truly needed help.
So let's talk a little bit about the book, because I want to share
Okay.
the book with people, and you can raise it up and show it. I think you got the book there,
Okay.
so just kind of show them the cover of the book. Yeah, and it's Living
Yep.
Life in Reverse. Okay, so take us on a little bit of the journey about the book.
Okay. Yes. First of all, I'd like to say shout out to my daughter, Courtney, who designed the cover of the book. She's an artist, so kept it in the family.
Yeah.
It opens up when Mara's asleep. She wakes up. She's having a nightmare. Why? Because she's suffering from post-traumatic stress. She's trying to do everything, put Band-Aids on it. She thinks that, if I just get some sleep, I'll be okay. But what Mara doesn't recognize is that she's been suffering with insomnia since she was 13. She's been suffering with migraines since she was 17. She was suffering with anxiety and depression since she was 17. And then anxiety is future oriented. She's so focused on, how to hide this. She puts more energy in trying to hide her post-traumatic stress than to deal with it. So she recognizes that it's impacting her relationship with her daughter, who's 10, her husband. She doesn't have any friends because she doesn't feel like she wants to deal with that. So she doesn't have any friends. She has brothers. One brother is estranged. One brother is getting therapy. And here's I think what I love about what I did in this book is like the siblings and Mara are all dealing with their own post-traumatic stress, dealing with this one event, but they just all experience it differently. But from Mara's perspective, so what? So what? Y'all had to deal with the aftermath. I had to deal. So she is minimizing. She's minimizing what they had to go through. You have a brother who felt like I should have been there to protect you. I remember my brother telling me that I should have been there, and my response was no. It was mom's responsibility to protect me, not you. So then he becomes estranged because he can't face her. Then you have another brother who is accepted that, hey, this is who mom is. He's trying to live by the word of God. We're supposed to honor our mother and father. And Mars like, well, you weren't the one raped, so that's easy for you to say. And so, we have all these family dynamics happening within the siblings itself. But then when Mara needs them the most, everyone shows up for her. Everyone. And it's in that moment when she realizes, okay, I need to figure out what I'm going to do. Am I going to get the help that I need so I can live life forward? Or am I going to just say, you know what? I have too much shame connected to it. And so I can't do it. I don't want to talk about it. It's too painful. It's overwhelming. I don't want to deal with it. Being in denial works for Mara. And that's what she wants to do. She wants to stay in denial.
Before we wrap up, once again, thank you so much for
what a great story.
Come in and share the story. But before we wrap up,
because I got another question too.
You got another question?
Can I ask mine? No, so this is just okay.
Go ahead. Answer
you do
question,
the wrap up.
and I'll do the wrap up.
I just have one more question, and that was, where's the relationship with the family today?
My mother is dead. She died in 2019, and try not to get emotional.
Okay.
But
sorry.
In the chapter, no, please don't be sorry. In the chapter, when it starts to talk about 59 minutes, it was the 55 minutes of forgiveness and grace that I granted my mother before she died. Now, the story is fiction, but the 59 minutes is not. It was my mother talked to her 59 minutes before she died, unknowing that she was going to die. And so that's it. My brothers and I are still not close. Again, one lives in D.C., two lives in D.C., and then I have a brother in Baltimore. Their relationships, my relationships with them, is probably the best it's going to get because I think my brother still feels like I should have protected her, and he just has not been able to face me since I was 13 years old.
Wow.
It's really hard for him.
Yeah.
Now I can ask my question? Okay.
Sure.
Now I'm going to ask this question. The backbone to your quest for treatment appears to have came from your rock, which is your husband. What's that like for you guys now, knowing that you had to go through all this? He had to endure just as much as you had to endure. Your children had to endure just as much as you did. In the bigger scheme of things, throughout all that you've gone through, and my condolences to the loss of your mother and the beautiful 59 minutes that you dedicated to her. What's the bigger? What message should people get from your story at this point in your life?
Shame dies when you tell your story. That's it for me. My shame started to die when I told my story.
Shame.
And also,
when you tell your
shame died when I started to tell my story. Right. Wow. And for me, it was all about, I just felt free. I felt like this weight had been lifted. I've been walking around and I'm like, why am I ashamed? This happened to me. I didn't do anything to anyone. Someone did it to me. And so for me, I live by shame dies once I started to tell my story.
Yeah. And so what's next for you?
Oh, you know what? I'm doing a podcast called What Happens in This House Stays in the House. It's a play on what we had to endure an example, meaning that why did we live by that model? There was a protective element in that. If you look at what's happening now within the Latino community, I'm guessing their family saying, "Hey, don't share anything that happens in this house," because they're trying to stay safe, they're trying to stay in their home, but also there's a shame connected to it because they knew what was going on should not have been going on, and that's why. Only time a person tells you to keep a secret, oftentimes in that setting, is when there's something wrong, when something's not right. And for me, I just thought, what happens in this house stays in this house. I was like, I want to break that down. I want to break that wall down, and I want to say, yes, the name of it is what happens in this house stays in this house. If you want it to. If you don't want to tell, if you're not ready to tell, but if you want to tell it, this is a safe place to do it.
How can the viewers reach out to you, get your book, and support you?
LLIR.org. You can go on to living_life_reverse on Instagram and Facebook.
If you had to say thanks to your husband and your children for sticking with you, here's your 30 seconds to do that.
Okay. Well, I call my husband my morning honey, because that's what he feels like to me. He's just sweet. He's kind. He's generous. He's thoughtful. He edited my book for me. He's one of the editors of my book. He encouraged me to love myself when I didn't even know what that meant. He introduced me to, and the most important thing is he introduced me to the Word of God. And I'm just indebted to him. Yes. As far as my children, they are amazing. I have a child. My son is a lawyer. My daughter is a biomedical illustrator, the one that illustrated that did the cover. And then my oldest daughter is the writer. And so I go, well done with all the mental health that you had to go through.
Hey, girl, it's amazing what we can do.
Yeah.
Okay.
Look, that Black woman don't play. But
there you go. That's called strength, sis. That's the strength of a Black woman. Don't play. That's right.
You know what?
Sure.
This is definitely. No, I didn't want to cut you off. What do you want to end with? Go ahead.
And so for my children, I feel like I'm leaving them a legacy of self-care and self-love and self-respect.
And I'm sure they forgive you dearly for all the smothering. They understand. Yeah, for sure. Yeah. But girl, you kept them out of trouble. They just don't even know. They don't know it.
Yeah.
So,
and look at them now.
With that said, once again, thank you so much for taking time out.
Thank you.
I'm on the show and share a great story. Like I said, ladies and gentlemen, all it takes is a click. Please follow, like, support her.
And share.
All it takes is a click to make a difference in somebody's life or to basically enhance your life. Yolanda, thank you for taking time out to once again grace the seat.
Yes, and they need to click like and share and subscribe to Andre The Beast Crayton Show.
How can they reach out to you? Because you're doing your own thing too. I gotta let people know what you're doing.
I love you for it. Just reach out to me at branding, the number 4 success, branding for success, bringing you all the latest in branding expertise and business strategy. Because right now we need to definitely be getting our stuff together and doing our own thing. There is a power in being empowered.
Let me close out and ask you this question because you are a brand therapist. We just heard an amazing story. We heard transformation. How does this resonate to a brand? Because she just branded something that is truly amazing. She's telling a story. She's being transparent and she's changing lives. So not only in her household, but for the millions who are going to watch this podcast.
Right. I think when you think about it from a branding, I think what you can look at Brenda and you can see is the evolutioning, the blossoming, the becoming, right? The becoming. And all I can say is that you're there now, sis. So now take it and run with it, right? Run with, don't. This is what I tell people when you have these sort of gifts, when you have these sort of stories, people connect with your story, not your glory. You understand? People love to see the progress, not the perfection. And so you have an opportunity to impact so many lives with your story, because right now, as we speak, somebody is sitting there with that secret still buried inside them and suffering in silence. And you just gave them permission to let the shame die. And so that's powerful. So I'm going to follow your journey. I'm counting on you to keep going with this and to really be able to normalize therapy. Normalize, you can become that ambassador, if you will, that brand ambassador around helping people to allow that shame to die and normalize
and
therapy.
Demoralizing the word shame. Getting rid of the word.
For sure.
Yeah, well, like she said, letting the shame die. It shouldn't be there because, again, that's the problem, is that so many victims take on the role that should really be given to the perpetrator.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Don't let them. Ladies and gentlemen, this has been another
amazing,
exciting episode
of
the Andre
The Beast
Crayton
Crayton.